don't achieve success without putting in long hours, late nights, and hard work. That's what we're doing right now. We're not making excuses. We're just doing what needs to be done so that we can have the future that we want to have. You have to start with discipline, not motivation. You have to understand that progress happens when you show up daily, even when you don't feel like doing something. Consistency always will compound. Trust the process. The work that you put in today builds momentum for your future. Saturday morning, getting some miles in. It's been a struggle building up mileage recently. Combination of running the marathon and kind of being fried from that prep, and then getting sick, being out for 2 weeks and trying to build back stamina. It's just been tough. So I'm gonna go out this morning, easy 4 miles. Starting to really think about this marathon that's coming up that I want to do, and I'm like, it's not gonna run itself. And I know I'll get into the mentality of running in the summer, but I know the goal that I want to set and the goal that I want to get. I gotta start running now. So I'm going to document that process going forward. Just building on mileage, fitness, consistently staying in the gym, prioritizing legs every week, and just my work life too. This channel is just going to be really about my fitness, my journey with work, and everything pertaining to God too. So my life literally centers around running, lifting, God, in my work. That's really it. So we're gonna go out for this 4 miles. I'm gonna come back, work a little bit. Just got a couple things I gotta tidy up, and then we're just gonna relax the rest of the day. We're gonna focus on our finances, make sure that we have all that taken care of, and that we're looking good for the upcoming week and the upcoming month. You have to prioritize what matters the most, and you have to turn discipline into a habit. You have to make time for your faith, your fitness, and your personal growth, just like you do for work. And you've got to create routines that align with your purpose, and you've got to show up for yourself every single day. So every now and then I like to go in the Bible and just flip to a page that I've already taken notes on, a page that I've already kind of studied, and just to see where my head was at and to get a glimpse into what I may have been going through at the time, or just to refresh on my knowledge of the Word. And today I wanted to flip to Genesis 22. Genesis 22 is probably my favorite in the entire Bible. Favorite chapter in the entire Bible. Now it came about after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. He said, Take now your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I will tell you. Understanding chapter 22 in Genesis, these first 2 verses are so pivotal, especially when you think about our own lives and what we go through. Especially, I was talking about Job in a couple of videos prior. It's just God will test us. And I think in our Christian walks, we have 2 types of tests. We have the test over here that's to produce faith, especially early on in our walk. And then we have the test over here, which is to reveal our faith. And Abraham here, he was tested to reveal his faith, not to produce it. And when you think about verse 2 specifically, he says, Take now your son, your only son, whom you love, offer him there as a burnt offering. Each one of these phrases, these words, is like a dagger. It's like a knife in Abraham. And that's how he builds us up. It's little by little. Every little like testifier, every little like sharp blade that turns, and it's like, but that's what's growing us. And it's to reveal that you are a man or woman of faith. And this is exactly how he's going to build us and work in us, just like he did with Abraham here. when we go down, especially verses 10 through 15, it starts to get really deep. Abraham stretched out his hand and took his knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. He said, Do not stretch out your hand against the lad and do nothing to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. That's verses 10 through 12. Abraham was completely willing to plunge his hands into the filth. He was completely willing to do what God said, even though it was to cost him his son. And here's the thing about God. God, if he sees us fully willing, full of faith, he's going to take his hands and plunge them into the filth, removing ours, and do the dirty work for us. God just wants to know that we fully believe in him. God wants us to know that if we believe, he's got us. And sometimes he'll test us, because if we're not tested, we're not sharp. Just like a pencil. When you think about a pencil, you can't use that pencil but for so long before it gets dull. You got to resharpen it. That's what God's doing. That's what God is doing to us in our hearts, in our minds, in our souls. Just remember, God is going to take that sacrifice out of your life and out of your hands if you just give it up to him. And that's another thing that I've really been thinking about. It's like, we just have to give everything up to him. Like, we can't have these things in our minds and our hearts that are like, this is ours. This is our journey. This is my story. Because we're lucky to even be here. Like, we wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for him. I haven't had a sip of alcohol in probably a month and a half. It's the night before the Super Bowl. I was like, I've been stressed out at work for the past couple of weeks. So I'm like, you know what? Let me just grab a bottle of wine and just kind of relax, put on a movie, make some dinner, have some ground beef, some rice, some broccoli, and just sip some wine. So there's been a couple phrases and a couple quotes that have been kind of motivating me recently. For one, macro patience and micro urgency. Having enough patience to weather the storm, and then when your opportunity happens, seizing that. And I think the next thing I'm going to say goes along with that pretty well. It's you do all these years of training, all this work, all this grind. The journey just goes on and on and on, and then it just happens at once. That's how it works. You keep going, and then it just happens. And a lot of people think you're just an overnight success, but they didn't see the hours, the weeks, the months, the years of just grind over and over and over again. While they're going out partying every weekend, Thursday night, you're sitting there perfecting your craft. You're waking up dedicated, day in and day out, going to the gym, running, working, prioritizing God, not making an excuse when it's easy to make an excuse. You're going above and beyond. You're pouring into your church. You're seeking groups. And all the while, you're still trying to pour into community and build up relationships around you of people who may not even be in Christ, but you're trying to bring them to his throne. If you want success, you got to work for it. If you want to do good in your life, you have to put in the work. You get out what you put in. One thing I'm really realizing is that there's no shortcut to success. As I'm navigating corporate work and I'm navigating just living life completely alone and just growing as a young man, it's just keeps coming back to me. There's no shortcuts. There's no weaving your way through certain things. You have to put in the work. And as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that if I want any type of wealth, if I want an inheritance for my family, if I want a prestigious job, it just won't come if I don't do the work on the front end. Sometimes I just sit back while I'm working and I'll just look at my diplomas. It just kind of takes me back when I was in graduate school mostly, and in undergrad. Undergrad's kind of a blur, but grad school, just thinking about the grind. Right now I'm in a really busy season at work, and I look up and I'm like, oh, you've been through this before. You've been through it. And it just makes it a little bit easier. And it just gives me a sense of accomplishment, because going to grad school and working while having classes at night, while also trying to learn how to run, trying to lift, was so much work. And boy, am I thankful, I'll tell you that. God put me in that position to make me so much stronger, and it did. Developed so much character in me too. I'm thinking about like the book I'm writing right now, that I'm transcribing right now, and it's like all those memories I go through daily. Just, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. When you sit back and you think about the journey you've gone through, what you've come from, you really have to think, I'm living what I prayed for. Once, a long time ago, I prayed for this exact moment that I'm in now. And you just have to be thankful, grateful. You have to pray. You have to sit there and weep. Weep to God. All the memories. Wow. Yeah. Hard work gets you to where you want to go. You combine that with Jesus and loving God with all of your heart, mind, body, and soul, then the sky's the limit. The other day, my run club did a Who Has the Best Fashion. I think I clearly win that with my full sweatsuit, navy blue and black, just killing it. Old school, baby. Long-term consistency equals a life of purpose. God's going to reward you if you stay faithful in the small things. Sticking to the process is going to build your belief in yourself, and a disciplined life leads to lasting fulfillment. You've got to remember that, and you've got to start today, and you've got to stay consistent and stay faithful. Keep showing up, keep putting in the work, and trust that God is guiding your journey. bring more of my food on here. This is lunch, ground beef, sweet potato, nutrient dense, very protein heavy, also carb heavy.
If you were trying to argue for Jesus to someone who wants to believe but doesn't believe in him, how would you do that without telling them they should just believe or they should just know that he is real?
I think my answer to that is I'm going to give them example after example of what God has done in my life. That's
It's
all.
hard.
It really is.
Okay. And so when you give them the examples of God's faithfulness in their life, they come back with, okay, like, thank you for sharing, but I've relapsed as an addict. I lost my wife 5 years ago and I have no hope.
If you have two options, you have to either go down the path that you're going and it not get better and just maybe hope happenstance that one day it happens and you're just okay again, or you can choose to accept something that you can't see right now, but hope through your faith that one day you'll see a better life and you'll have some higher calling to your life. I would rather you choose the path that's going to bring you a little more hope than the path of just happenstance. That's what I'm going to say to that person. And it might be a little rough, my delivery, but I don't see another way.
So then, why do good things happen to bad, why do bad things happen to good people? And why do good things happen to bad people?
Isn't that the age-old question? Yeah. We don't know why God calls certain people at certain times, and we just don't know, but we do know that everything happens for the good of Christ in the end. Okay.
But basically the lesson was, like, how do you explain to somebody an objective truth, like, through subjective experience?
So I'm gonna ask you, how does that happen for you though?
Softball example, and I use like what I walked through at Ohio State and transferring to Alabama, and how I was able to see the Lord in the way people interacted with me and loved me more so than anything they said to me. And them holding space for the heavy and the hard things, even when I didn't ask them to, nor did I think I needed them to, they still chose to. And then I was able to see like the Lord use that to not just heal me, but also like make me desire to share more, because I wanted to be what they were for me. So I like experienced people truly being the hands and the feet, without saying that or trying to like push Jesus on me. They just acted like him and reflected him. And so then to go into how I would try to convince somebody, I would love to say that I would just love them. And obviously speaking truth and love has a lot of weight, and scripture is obviously powerful and it works and prayer works, but I think there's a lot of weight behind you just loving people well, and as Jesus would, and seeing them with eyes that you would see them through, and like ears to listen like you would. Even when I was about to keep you happy.
No, that was my bad.
Even when Peter like betrayed him 3 times, like he still was so gentle and like took him back. Like Peter got out of the boat and swam back to Jesus after he betrayed him, knowing that he'd still find mercy at his feet. And so I think even in a world that's so quick to condemn and push and be aggressive or defensive in what we believe or want to believe, like the choice to be soft and open and hold space for people who question or have different beliefs is powerful. And that's kind of my story. And so, yeah, that's my answer.
That was great. I think you hit on all the points, especially like you said like knowing like when and like when to give someone love. I think there's something to be said about like knowing when not to speak too, just to
1000%.
actively
presence is a ministry.
Listen, Yep.
Like presence is a ministry. Tears are prayers, and I felt that in my life too. Like moments of there's things I want to say, but also knowing that I don't need to. And sometimes, even with my girls at school, like my response, they always say I'm about to cry, and my response is always, well, then I'll cry with you. And like the amount of trust there are behind tears is incredible, and I can speak to that because I'm prideful with my tears. But choosing silence when it's necessary a lot of times is way more powerful than speaking.
Yeah. You can always follow up too. I think that, like, especially if you know somebody, like it's not like a one and done thing. Like, and if it is like someone who's really hurting like that much, it's all you can do is love at that point. There's no words that's going to penetrate whatever they're thinking at that moment. So just show them love, just like Jesus would. That's the biggest thing. It's like
Yeah.
I often think like I just need to love like Jesus would.